Don't fall for the upsell opportunity of, well, in order to get that, you have to buy this and this and this, because you'll end up in exactly the same process with a lot of duplication, a lot of wastage, significantly. So whatever solution that you're aiming for and whatever requirement that you have, it should be a solution that encompasses or solves two problems. The first one being the individual support. This should be such a granular solution that individuals benefit from it. That is, that the individual traveller, the individual destination, the individual act of travel should be enhanced by the products and services on a granular individual level. Secondly, it should be a solution that is replicatable, a solution that is distributable across your entire organisation. It can be utilised, it has scalability. You shouldn't be paying for the same service 2 or 3 times over. That is, you're paying for a singular service and you're paying for a group service. By and large, any granular singular service will also meet the needs of the larger community, but there may be some tweaking, there may be some calibration, there may be some training or knowledge gap that needs to be fulfilled. But whatever solution you focus on should encompass those two fundamental elements, that is, for individuals as well as groups. And thirdly, you need to buy smart. When you're making these investments for your analysation, you're analysing the products and services, understanding what you can and can't buy, you need to make a smart investment. And that investment needs to focus on those priority travel elements as well as the population that you're trying to support and oversee. And for the most part, a lot of organisations are driven by these concepts and theories of high risk, low risks, hostile environments, extreme risks. And that's simply unnecessary. You end up, what happens is that you're paying for a premium service for really something that only 2 to 5% of your organisation requires if they're moving to an area where there is an increased hazard identification. This is not risk, because no one else can subjectively determine your risk unless they've understood both your business and they understand the individual. So these group risk ratings are simply nonsense. They're simply ineffective and they will not be supported in a court of law. Over time, organisations and governments will start to realise that somebody else halfway around the world or in isolation or even as a service provider cannot determine your risk rating for a particular location and country. They can identify the hazards, they can identify the potential threats, but the risk rating needs to be relevant to your business and your activities. And again, this results in a whole lot of wastage where people think that they're investing in someone providing that solution for them, and it's just not possible. And they tend to overinvest because they're trying to solve the problems of the few, and when in reality they need to go back and analyse the problems of the majority, and also then singular out the more extreme or the more dedicated processes for areas where there is an elevated or increased threat or hazard associated with business travel. So essentially what you should be buying is based on a needs base, not a bundled solution. So those needs and requirements, as you've identified in the first phase, specific to both your business, specific to your destination, specific to the service providers in that area, you should have a customized needs-based solution, not a bundle. And one thing, the greatest frustration I see is a lot of organizations believe that the pinnacle or the best process is a whole of business travel, a whole of earth world domination product. Well, you need to stop doing this, because in reality, this is the single greatest wastage. You'll find that you only really need information for maybe 10 to 50 countries, maybe 10 to 20% of your population is going to be traveling outside of the general travel channels. So what a lot of organizations have been forced to do, or simply surrender themselves to the process, they go and buy these whole of region or whole of earth products, and they simply don't use them. And the proof is in the pudding. Go back and do a statistical analysis. Look at the countries in which you've utilized the most. Look at the countries and services that are part of the bundled solution you have, and again, you will find that in excess of 90% of the products and services and information and support is wasted. You haven't used it. You didn't need it. Why do you continue to buy it? Essentially, what you should be focusing on is those core areas, those priority areas, both for your travelers and your business that you're traveling to. This is where a lot of organizations, and the bigger they are, probably the worst offenders, is that they overlook local products and services. They don't know how to buy them, they don't understand it, or they just don't trust them because they're not a global player, or they want this one-stop shop. The reality is that you get a solution for everybody that really works for nobody. What you need is strong localization in your content, your information, your support, and your delivery that helps you at the granular level. That is, for the individual, the location, the environment, and the activity needs to be supported. Having a global support practice when you really only travel to 4 or 5 countries, again, constitutes significant waste of investment, time, and resources, and continues to perpetuate the myth that, the more countries and the bigger the service, the better the outcome. And for most companies, even the Fortune 500s, even companies with tens or hundreds of thousands of employees, do not need these global products, these global solutions, these hundreds of countries, because when you look at it, they really only travel to a small percentage regularly. They only have a small percentage of requirements, and everything else is wastage. And that's a voluntary process, both from the providers as well as for those who continue to buy these services. So again, if we look at the process, what you should be able to do is identify an insurance process where not only the traveller's coverage and purchases is commensurate with that of the utilisation, and it helps you either reduce your incidents and claims. Same with the management. You'll find travel management, the expenditure and purchase of tickets and the utilisation should be an increased process, and the amount of incidents, and that is the events. Events are typically similar to that of utilisation, in the sense that when it comes to management, the event is a flight. Therefore, you have to purchase the flight. It's not a free process. You have to purchase a hotel. Well, that's an incident or an event. When it comes to assistance, the last but not least, what we tend to see here is a gross over-purchasing process, where 90 to 95% of the service is unutilized. Whilst all of the travellers are covered, the utilisation of the individuals is small, even for the push notifications, even for the push information services. A lot of people do not read them. There's no compliance in place. They don't act upon them. They're not auditable. They're not sustainable. Simply having a service that has the whole world covered and continues to push things to your inbox simply is not evidence of an implemented process, and it's certainly not evidence of a system that reduces your costs, improves business productivity when you're traveling, or last but certainly not least, reduces the hazards and threats associated with business travel. Essentially, all of these areas can be targeted for reduction of costs, both through a whole lot of strategies, from self-insurance to self-management to buying selective products to making products, buying and selecting products that support you in multiple areas, not just focusing on one area. And many of these service divisions are starting to converge. And we've seen a significant convergence over the last couple of years, where simply buying in one of these areas will support and cover you in most of the other associated areas. It's certainly something to look out for. It's certainly something to look for in terms of cost efficiencies. So just to recap, when we're talking about the management of risk associated with business travel, the first thing you need to do is to calculate the need. Identify specifically who needs to be covered, what areas, what countries, and identify a solution based on your key criteria, not what the service providers or the industry is offering at the time. Secondly is consider the options within the market. You may find that there will be a single solution that covers the majority. You may need to seek a number of solutions in order to achieve that, or you may simply find yourself drifting away from the larger mainstream products and services with a more discrete or more localized offering, and finding both cost efficiencies associated, but also more informed and better supporting products and services just for your particular needs. It doesn't need to be a global product. It doesn't need to be a whole of earth solution if your areas are really only falling into a handful of locations. Everything else is wastage. And third is buy smart. Make sure that once you've identified your needs, you've considered your options, that your investment continues to be predicated on the requirements and the availability of the services, not just, well, this is what we've done every year, this is what everyone else is doing, oh, well, this is the product as it stands. You do have the right of refusal, you do have the right of recourse with the providers, and simply force them or pressure them, or simply find those that offer just what you require, not everything else. It's more, particularly when you see the advertising and the stories associated with them, they talk about themselves and how many countries and how many cases and all of it. What's that got to do with you? The reality is, how is it saving you money? How is it helping your people? How is the investment the most appropriate investment and solution for you, not what they provide and how many countries and how many people they have? That's inconsequential to you. Once again, the final stage is evidence, is proof. It's no good to treat this as a theoretical exercise. It has to be implemented. Once you've got the entire process up and running, it has to be a solution that is both acceptable and used by your traveling population. You can't buy it and put it in a drawer. It's the single worst thing that you can do for a more tailor-made or targeted solution, is to buy it, invest it and research it, and then simply have it in a card that sits in someone's wallet or sits in a drawer or something that's not publicized. It has to be implemented, both from a duty of care, due diligence to prove that you followed the process, but also in terms of return on your investment or maximizing your return. It should be something that is utilized regularly, frequently or consistently in order to justify the outlay in the first place. Only by doing all of this will you prevent wasting thousands and thousands of dollars, which is currently the standard model for most organizations who are investing and procuring products and processes in this particular space. So if you have any more questions or feedback or comments on this particular element, you'd like to know more about the specifics of identifying service requirements, about calculating the options or understanding the options, and certainly how to implement these processes, please contact me. You can visit my website at www.tony-ridley.com, or you can email me, tony@tony-ridley.com, for more information, follow-up, or even a copy of these slides and the presentation if you would like to know more. Once again, thanks very much for your time. This has been focusing on the 3 easy steps to save your company thousands of dollars on travel management, intelligence assistance and insurance services to help your business travelers, to help your productivity, your efficiency, and above all else, enhance the travel health, safety and security of your business travelers, one of your key demographics. Once again, thanks very much and goodbye.